Welcome to the ToyTubers Podcast. This week we have Jeremy Girard, aka Mythic Customs. What's going on, man?
How you doing? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your channel, Mythic Customs.
Yeah, so my channel is totally focused on legions. When I started the YouTube channel a few years ago now, I did it specifically because I wanted a vehicle that I could connect with fellow Legions fans, that I could talk about my interests in the line. I could share tips on customizing. At the time, as one of the earliest Legions customizers, I would get a lot of people that would private message me asking the same questions. I was answering the same question over and over. So early on, that's why I started doing some of those like customizing tutorial videos. My goal was to answer the questions that I was for people for, to have a video answering the question that I was previously just answering on a one message at a time basis. So between that and having my weekly Mythic conversation show, where I could cover, Mythic Legions and now Cosmic Legions and so forth. That was my focus. But unlike a lot of toy channels, I wanted to be very focused. Right out of the gate, I was like, we don't need another toy reviewer. There are
Yep.
plenty of people that do that incredibly well. You yourself do that incredibly well. Even though I
Thank you.
collect things besides Legions, I didn't want to do another toy review type channel. I wanted to
Yeah.
do something that was just a way for me to connect with people and talk about the toys that, the Legion specifically that I dig.
You started off primarily doing tutorials and the conversations show, right?
Yeah.
Uh, how has it changed over the years? Actually, let's go back up a second. How long ago did you start? I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
A couple years ago now, I'm on. So I do it almost weekly. Mythic
Yep.
Conversations is basically a weekly show. The only times that I've skipped in the last few years have been when like I'm on vacation, or I'm traveling specifically for work, and I'm actually
Hmm.
not in front of a computer at that point. But
Yep.
other than that, I do it every week. And I think this past week was like episode like 134 or something like that. So it's been a few years that
3-ish years. Yeah.
I've been doing the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. That's as a podcaster, I can appreciate the consistency. It's really commendable to be able to keep it going like that.
It gets difficult because of those 130 something episodes, I'll be honest, I think I've had a script, and I say that in the loosest terms. I've had like an outline of stuff I knew I had to cover that night, probably like 10 episodes.
Right.
All the rest of them are literally just me babbling for 90 minutes. I
Yeah.
have a general idea of what the topic is going to be, and then I just go on and do it. I've done a lot of them that are live customizing sessions where I'm I'm live without a net. I'm going to paint on the show live. I don't
Hmm.
know what's going to come out of it.
Yep.
It's genuinely just me going on there and sharing 90 minutes with whoever decides to tune in.
Did you start Mythic Conversations as a recorded show and then switch to live? I'm trying to remember.
It was always live, but it used to be
Oh,
on Facebook. So
oh, that's right.
originally, when I first started, I was doing it live on the Mythic Legions Cabal, and I was just using Facebook Live. Like I was streaming right there, and I had
Hmm.
all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
One of the challenges for me, like getting into this, is I'm not a video guy at all. Uh, I've been involved in web design and marketing for over 20 years. But interestingly, when I first started in that career, it was like video was one path and like web design and digital was like a different path. And even though videos become such a huge part of the web these days, when I first started, it was two different paths. So I've never been a video enthusiast. I've never, gotten editing software just to do that for fun. So
Hmm.
getting started with this type of stuff was like really daunting for me. That
Right.
the technical challenges were one of the biggest problems I had. And very early on, I just kind of decided to jump in feet first and just do it. And I look back now at some of those early tutorials, and I'll even see comments that say like, "Oh, next time hold the item up to the camera," or "Your camera needs to be better." And I'm like, "This is a 3-year-old video." Yeah, I've definitely improved a lot technically
Yeah,
since
yeah.
then, but that was definitely a hurdle. And one of the big hurdles early on was Facebook Live sucks. It was awful for me. I had
Yeah.
all kinds of problems. There was a couple shows that just stopped recording in the middle of them.
Mhm.
So I ended up making the move to YouTube. And I think the first 13 episodes were on Facebook. And then I restarted at episode 0 and did that on YouTube. But since the beginning, it has actually been a live show.
Any other like I guess thoughts on how it's changed for you, evolved over the years?
When I first started, so I've started to do more conversational stuff, and that's, I mean, honestly, a big part is the show you're involved in, Legion's Lounge.
Hmm.
Seeing you guys as a trio be able to bounce ideas off each other and talk and bring in guests. If you actually go and look at my early episodes, I was deep, deep into the show before I ever had a guest on. It
Hmm.
was just me. Part of that also was getting StreamYard, which is, on the technical end, what I use to do the show. That made it so much easier to share
Yeah.
content, to bring in guests and stuff like that. But once I started doing that into the run of the show, I felt like it added another level to the show itself. And I'm constantly learning as well. Early on, it was very, very customizing heavy. Every single episode was about customizing.
Hmm.
And then I saw a lot of other, Legion shows, because Mythic Conversations was genuinely the first Legion's like regular show that was out.
Yeah.
Uh, I saw a lot of other people doing shows like I just mentioned, Legion's Lounge, and I was like, well, that's cool too. Let me break out of just the pure customizing. So now, there are some weeks that are conversational. There are some weeks that are very very focused on news segments and my opinions on things. And then there's still the customizing stuff. One of the most popular shows that I do these days is when I have my colleague at Four Horsemen Studios, Joe Vassapolo, on, and we do pop and swaps from any new wave. Like,
Yeah.
it blows my mind. People were asking me for this new wave of Cosmic Legions Outpost Axius that's on pre-order now. People were like, when are you going to do a pop and swap show? Because I plan out my purchase after your show, because you
Nice.
open up some doors that I
Hmm.
wouldn't have understood. That the fact that that's a thing blows me away. So having regular type of guests and regular type of shows we do, that's definitely evolved a little bit around it.
So
But yeah,
when is that episode going to be? Do you have it planned
Wednesday.
yet?
Yeah, so
That's
this
this
coming
week.
this coming Wednesday, I'm going to
Okay.
be traveling to the studio,
Okay.
and we'll do that there. I'm traveling this month, so that was like the best opportunity to do it within the 1 month window of the pre-order for that wave.
Yeah. So this, for listeners, viewers, this episode here publishes that same day in the morning. So if you're listening to this right away, you can catch the Mythic Conversations Outpost Zaxius live stream pop and swap event with Joe that night at 7:30.
Yeah, 7:30 p.m.
There,
Eastern, and
there you go.
it's recorded, so anyone who's not available to watch it live, they can
Yep,
always check out the replay.
of course. Nice. Um, So yeah, I mean, you've kind of mentioned it's a very sort of like casual approach. What are you using for like recording? Do you have any like gear that you're using specifically? Like, what's your kind of your tech look like over there?
Like I said, that's not my forte. So I'm just running through a laptop. I have a Lenovo ThinkPad laptop. The audio is going through a Logitech webcam. The camera I have is a Canon. It's like a camcorder type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually got it because my previous job before Four Horsemen Studios, we actually did have a recording studio there, and this was the camera we had in that studio. So I was like, well, someone that knows what they're doing picked that camera, so let me get the same one. And just recently, my wife got me like one of those big lights, so I have a light over there to
Yep.
kind of cast some illumination. But that's what I'm working on. I've tried a few other things, like I've tried to get like an actual microphone and everything, and this has always been what seems to work the best for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're doing a lot of hands-on customizing. It's tough
Mhm.
to have a dynamic mic like this where like
Yeah,
you always have to be on top of it, or
yeah,
even sometimes having like a lav mic is tough because you're gonna have a wire and like stuff getting in your way.
yeah.
So yeah, totally. Um, how about so yeah, again, this is might not totally apply for
Mhm.
you, but your workflow, your efficiency, like we said before, you have been super consistent with this
Mhm.
show weekly, almost never missing. How do you manage that in terms of just your managing your time?
It's interesting that during the run of Mythic Conversations, it's gone from being hobby to kind of part of my job.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone that knows my story, I started out as a Legions fan. I was a massive fan of Four Horsemen Studios. When I first started doing this, I was doing it purely because I was a fan that wanted to connect with other fans. The way it started, to be honest, was I did an interview on a podcast called Breaking the Mold.
Mm-hmm.
And after the show was done, I went back and watched it. And there were so many comments that came in that the hosts didn't ask me. And I was bummed because I was like, wow, those were really good questions. I wish I could have had that conversation and answered those questions. So that's what made me want to start doing the live show, was to just genuinely talk to people. I've been a collector for goodness many decades now, and there was a period where I had some friends who I collected with, and that fell away. I'm not in contact with them anymore. So there was a period of time where being a collector was very lonely for me. I didn't have
Yeah.
anybody else. My wife is awesome. She's always supported it, but she's not a collector herself. So it's a point where it was very lonely being a collector. And when I found the Legions community being so welcoming, finding my people, if you will, I wanted to share more of that. I wanted to embrace that more. So that is genuinely why I started doing it. And then it was just a release. It was fun every week to come on and connect with everybody and have those conversations. Well, fast forward to where I am now, and I'm the full-time director of sales and marketing for Four Horsemen Studios. So the show that I'm doing now, even though honestly we've never said like, okay, your show has to cover this, your show has to cover that. I have full reign to talk about whatever I want. But now that I'm working there full time, I always had a lot of information. I was always kind of the historian of the line. Now I can add, even more to that because I'm directly involved with the production of the toys. So that's kind of what I try to bring to the show, is that level of knowledge, that level of understanding, that when fans when fans want to get the real scoop, when they want to ask questions and get a knowledgeable answer, that's what I try to pride myself on being able to bring. So your question was, how did I maintain that consistency? It went from being something I enjoy doing to something that I still enjoy doing, but really does fall under the purview of my job responsibilities.
Right. So it has a bigger weight, so to speak, I guess
Sure.
you could say. Yeah.
And I mean, part of the reason that I was, presented with this opportunity to do what I do now is because of all that stuff that I did earlier. All those years that I was doing all those customs, and that I was, doing the show and everything like that. Those were not paid. I wasn't getting paid for that stuff. That was,
Yep.
again, me doing it out of a sheer love of the line and the community. Uh, so I respect the fact that the passion I put into it ended up paying dividends for me personally, because it showed the community and the studio itself what an asset I could be to, present this information. And that's got me where I am today.
Yeah. How about talking a little bit about this interview is for Jeremy, the host of Mythic Customs
Mhm.
YouTube channel, but you're heavily involved in the Four Horsemen
Mhm.
YouTube channel as well, and in their events and things like that, right? Like, so when they do live streams, when they announce a wave,
That's me.
those types of things, like
Yeah.
that's you. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Four Horsemen YouTube channel is kind of split in half between the weekly show, which is
Yeah.
Chris and George,
Mm-hmm.
and I help out with that a little bit, like when they need some technical something, or there's a couple things I'll do for that, but that's largely them just kind of
Mm-hmm.
having their one show a week to be silly. Uh, but yeah, all of the broadcasts that we do, the annual GCon broadcast, any other waves that we do a reveal special, I'm heavily involved in those. I obviously program all those. I act genuinely as the host of all
Yep.
those. If you watch GCon, it's very much me carrying the conversation and talking to Eric and talking to others. Uh, to me, that's just an extension of what I've always done. It's looking at the stuff that's going to be released. It's figuring out, what's the best way to actually present this. I get to ride both sides of that fence as, part of the team who's also still a massive fan of this line. So I get to say, like, hey, what do I think would be the most impactful way to reveal this? And then the fan side of me is like, oh, yeah, that's right. That's going to be awesome. I can almost imagine what fans are going to think at each one of these reveals because I can still very much put myself in their shoes. So,
Mm-hmm.
we say all the time that we make the toys we want to see. Similarly, I program the types of shows that I would want to see when it comes to the Horsemen.
And looking at the trajectory of, going back to maybe like, what was the first GCon, like Wasteland or something, like way back?
Soul Spiller.
Soul
Yeah.
Spiller, right?
So
So,
20,
their Aerithyr,
2018.
yeah, going all the way back to those days, and sort of looking at the trajectory of how uh, those types of events have evolved. I can say, like, just last year's GCon was leaps and bounds, even
Yeah.
beyond, I mean, in terms of like production value and just having just an awesome flow and everything beyond like even those previous ones. It was a really good event, and I'm very impressed that you literally sat in that chair for the entire time. How many hours was that?
It
Like
was great.
6 hours or something?
6 hours. Yeah.
My lord.
Yeah. I will say that we got pretty deep into the show before I think Eric and I realized we hadn't gotten up yet. Because in other G cons we have gotten up and other people have come on. Last year's G Con was a little bit different because a lot of other G Cons we've done, they've been a lot more free flowing. Like we don't know who's going to come on when. We didn't really know everyone that was going to come on. Cornboy, you were there at the show. You were behind the scenes. Cornboy was just walking around saying, "Okay, you're going on next," and he was grabbing
Yeah.
people out of the audience that we felt would be good on camera, that had something to say, that were a notable part of the community. Um, but beyond that, Eric and I had an outline of how we were going to reveal it, what was important to hit on each character. We had never done that before. That was the first year. And not for nothing, it was the first year that I was actually a full time member of the studio. It
Yep.
was at last year's G Con and Legions Con for the Poxus Wave that we first started talking. I'd been working with them part time for 3 years. But it was the first time we started talking about me coming on full time and what that would look like. So I do think that last year's GCon for Necronominus was an example of what that full time engagement kind of looks like. I don't do actual figure reviews, but like when the Aerithyr wave hit, so the Aerithyr wave, I was the first one to show those on camera because they had just arrived. We hadn't started shipping them yet, and I went to the studio
Yeah.
and got my set. So the first in-hand look at those was on Mythic Conversations. So it wasn't a review in the purest sense, the way that, people do the great reviews with all the angles and everything. But there are definitely times where I give my first impressions of
Yeah.
things and I bring it on. So yeah, it's a different kind of review, I guess.
Hmm. So of those types of things, I guess the question would be, what are your, I guess, like, what's your favorite angle to take when you're talking about a figure and you're reacting to a figure? Is it like, ooh, this is most interesting for pop and swaps, or is it when you have a really interesting new character? Of course, you're involved now in
Yep.
the writing of these characters and stuff. So, like, what angles do you like to take when you're showing off a figure for an audience? I guess.
So not to totally be cheesy, but you just kind of got both of my favorite two angles. There are certain characters that I really like the bios for them because there's something special about it.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, when the All Stars 5 wave is coming out, so my favorite figure in that wave is Dubon. Love Dubon. From a figure perspective, it's just a gorgeous figure, amazing value with all the parts. But on the back end, I remember that when we were doing those articles, my wife shared an article with me from Patagonia about these like Japanese hawk trainers, takajos,
Mm-hmm.
that it's like a lost art where these men like live in the wild with their birds and the relationship they have and the level of trust they have. Like there were these photos of this Japanese man like having tea and this bird is just hanging out on his arm. And it's an incredible, incredible relationship. If you read Dubon's bio, the word Takajo is in there,
Yep.
and I got it from that article. So for me, that's kind of cool because I know where the influences came from. I know that I read that article, it had an impact on me, and I was immediately able to take that influence and bring it in and put it into this bio. So I love to be able to present that. Whenever I'm showing stuff, because I have behind the scenes knowledge, that's my favorite thing to share. Because that's something that another reviewer is not going to have. They're not going to know the development process. Callie and Shun from the upcoming Cosmic Legion's Outpost wave, she's like a bodyguard. The fact that she started as a bounty hunter, that's something that unless you were in that planning room where we were talking about these character designs, the word bounty hunter is nowhere in her bio, it's nowhere in her story, because once we got further down the road we said that's too on the nose, let's change that around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But other people have said she's got a very bounty hunter look to her. A lot of people have said they remind her of Leia in the Bausch disguise from Return of the Jedi. That's not unintentional. That was part of the character design. So sharing that type of stuff when I present a figure, I love doing that. But the other side is my channel is known for customizing. It's known for pop and swaps. My joke nickname is LBC, Lazy Boy Customizer. So I love showing simple customs. I know you are well known for your pop and swaps. I like doing that as well, whether it's a pure pop and swap, whether it's a tiny little bit of paint, something very simple to achieve to get that LBC. So when I present new figures as well, I like to give people ideas of ways that they could use them beyond just the figure itself. So those two angles, behind the scenes stuff and some simple LBC type ideas, that's really when I present a new figure from a reviewing type standpoint where I like to go.
Mm. Yeah, and you're a storyteller. I mean, I was just blown away by how awesome those Outpost Zaxius
Thank you.
like stories weaved together, and just that whole series of things was great. Like, awesome job on that. And so clearly that storytelling is also coming through in your video making. Your and this is a very common um I guess topic or theme throughout like a lot of these interviews that we've had, is like this idea of trying to be a storyteller, and with whatever video you're making, telling a story. So it fits
Yeah,
right in with what a lot of people see with YouTube.
absolutely. I mean, again, I'm a fan. whenever I enjoy something and I hear information about it, some behind the scenes information, I love details on how things are made. I love details on why they're made. I've been a
Hmm.
designer my whole life, so understanding why things are the way they are tends to give me a deeper appreciation for them. I'm the type of person that if I learn the secrets behind a magic trick, it doesn't ruin it for me. I tend to appreciate it even more
Yeah.
for the skill that's involved in me not knowing what it was originally. So part of the storytelling, part of the sharing is all kind of within that thought process of, people enjoying what they're experiencing more because they have that extra detail.
What kind of channels do you like to watch outside even of Legions? Like what kind of toy channels mostly do you like to watch?
So being frank, I don't get to watch very many. And there's twofold. I have a lot of my job is writing. I
Yeah.
have a really hard time having I can't even have music on when I'm
Yeah.
writing. I need silence. So the only time I can put YouTube channels on is when I'm doing something that's just rote processing, like processing orders. If I'm
Right.
doing anything creative, if I'm doing any kind of writing, I can't have that on. So my work day, which is fairly lengthy to begin with, if I can't watch the shows, quite frankly, once I'm done, I kind of got to step back a little bit. I'm involved in the toy community and everything all day that even though this is what I love to do, I have to find that line where I say, you know what, I have to force myself to stop right now. I have to force myself to turn off the computer, to pick up a book, to go for a walk, to do things that are not toy related, because it's
Hmm.
easy to just get inundated. Now that my hobby is my job, it is really easy to get overwhelmed, and I don't want to get burnt out. I love what I do and I want to continue to love what I do. So for that reason, I find it very hard to keep up on all of the content that is out there. I do
Hmm.
regularly watch the Legion shows, so I like to see what everyone's talking about because I do like to see their perspectives as well. I do actually like. Oh, yeah, I listen to podcasts and stuff like that because, especially when I travel, if I'm going to the studio, it's a 3.5 hour drive. Putting on a podcast, it's perfect for that because I can just listen to it. And then, other than that, I do watch a variety of toy reviews, specifically when it's a toy that I'm on the fence about if I'm going to buy it or not.
Hmm.
And not saying because it's just you, but yourself, Toy Bro. You're two that I really like. The Amazing, especially if it's like a Mezco Rumble. I'll watch The Amazing's video to get a sense of what it is.
Yeah.
Outside of that, a lot of times I'll just Google or I'll go on YouTube and I'll just search for the item in question that I'm looking for, and whichever one seems to bubble to the top, I'll watch. But the ones I just mentioned, maybe Robo, those are the ones that I probably stumble upon the most.
Talk a little bit about your goals for your channel.
It's interesting because with my channel personally, I'm so focused with the studio on growth and growing the community and getting out to more people. And I've been focused in that for so many years, even with my previous job about channel growth and, growing community and growing reach, that I almost think I kind of have taken the exact opposite approach with my own channel.
Hmm.
uh, I don't pay attention a lot to how many followers I have. I'm horrible on Mythic Conversations when it comes to asking people to subscribe and stuff like that. Again, I don't know if it's because I'm so focused elsewhere that by the time I get to my own show, I'm kind of just not in that mindset. There is definitely still a part of Mythic Conversations that's me just talking to friends, and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I've always approached it. If you those people that come out, we just recently got back from Toylanta in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm an early riser. So I will tend to wake up early in the morning. I'll come down into the venue, and there's always a line of Legions fans in line already, which is amazing. I will spend an hour, 2 hours just talking to those people in line, answering questions, having conversations. That's what I like Mythic Conversations to be. I like Mythic Conversations just to be me having fun and talking about what's going on and what's on my mind, and occasionally sharing, projects I'm working on and stuff like that. So I do approach it very much from just, let's have fun, let's create great content, and everything else will follow. Do I want more followers? Yeah, sure. I want to be able to speak to more people. I want to be able to engage with more people. That's always really cool. But for me personally, on my channel, it's not why I do it. If I'm having a good time and the content is awesome and I don't get any more followers, I'm okay with that. Because I think we all know there are tons of people out there, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. You'll find accounts that you're like, this is amazing content. Why don't they have more followers? It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And then you'll see some on the flip side that the content's not that great, but they've got a bajillion followers. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to figure out why. I've always been very adverse. Like, for instance, on Instagram, I know this is about YouTube, but Instagram is a big channel that I use a lot.
Yep.
I've always been adverse to what I call the follow game, which is
Yeah.
see accounts that have really high follower counts, but then you look at how many they're following, and they're following 8,000 accounts. And I'm like, do
Right.
you actually care about 8,000 accounts? I know
Yeah.
that on my Instagram, I follow a very small number, but everyone I follow, I care about. It's something I want to see. I treat the people I follow are people I enjoy their content. I want to see more of it. So I've always approached it like that, where if you want to follow me because my content is good and because you like what I have to say, then awesome. Please do so. I hope more people do enjoy the content and follow, but I'm not interested in building a follower count just to have that high number or a check mark or whatever the hell comes with it.
I'm the same way
Yeah.
on Instagram. I cannot have my feed be just like random stuff. Like I don't want my feed to be a place that I avoid because it's just
Yeah.
like a general stream of just random stuff, you know? So
Well,
yeah, I'm always like unfollowing too because
yeah.
sometimes
Nope.
things change. People have these very casual, like accounts and it's toys for a year and then next year it's
Yeah.
memes, whatever. And it's like, okay,
I want to
I
follow
can't
anymore.
really.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, I mean, I like talking social media too on this
yeah.
show because it's very relevant
It
to
is. Yep.
YouTube, to running a channel, to having any kind of, I mean, YouTube is social media, so
Yep.
it's
100%.
all interrelated.
Yeah. And I was having dinner at Toylanta with a fellow Legions collector named Matt Stein the other day. And he said something that I thought was so profound, where he was talking about the process of customizing.
Hmm.
And he was talking about loving the process. And he said that, if you love the process, even if the end result isn't what you wanted, but you had fun getting there, it's a win. And I was like, that is one of the smartest things I've ever heard about customizing, because getting to that end result and comparing it to what you had in your head or what others may be doing and not being satisfied with it, we all do that. But if you genuinely love the process of getting there, and I talk to so many people that talk about my videos and they're like, wow, you got me to believe I could do this. And I started doing it and it's been so cathartic for me. I've absolutely loved painting. It's so relaxing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had people contact me with really touching testimonials that blow me away. And I'm like, dude, I'm doing little silly tutorial videos on dry brushing on YouTube. The fact that you're telling me this made an actual impact on your quality of life is not something I ever would have imagined. But that thought process of loving the process, I thought was great. And I really do try to apply that to my social media as well. I love to share what I'm sharing. I love the process of doing the show. If nothing else comes of it, you know what? I still had a great time, and that's a win. If more people follow, if it really resonates with others, then that is a bonus on top of the fulfillment I get myself.
How about things you would love to do on the, like, even if it's a pipe dream, like things you'd love to do on your channel in the future, something you'd like to try, something new you'd like to try, or some kind of additional thing you'd love to add to the channel?
I would love, whether it's my channel or Four Horsemen, by the way,
Yep.
I would love to do more from the road. When we go out, like we tell people all the time, if you can get to a show that the Horsemen are at, do it because it is so much fun. And yes, the big ones like Legions Con and Power Con are definitely the target ones to go to, the marquee ones. But even a show like Toylanta, we had such a blast and so many people had so much fun. I wish I could bring more of that. Like I wish that I had the time and the technical kind of ability to do more broadcasting from the road.
Yeah.
Technically, I'm sure I could figure it out. It's more that it's so busy when we're on the road. Like even people will ask, "Are you going to broadcast from Legions Con?" And I'll have the best intentions of doing so, but it's so busy. There's just not a moment to catch your breath, much less say, "Okay, I'm going to do a live broadcast video." But if you're asking for goals, that would be a goal that I would love to be able to capture on the channel, more of the excitement of being out in the community, being at these shows and interacting with fans and really what that's like.
Yeah. Live streaming from conventions is rough,
Yeah.
mostly because of the internet quality
Yeah.
when you're surrounded by thousands of people. So yeah, I someone like Pixel Dan, usually I think he does. I use him as an example because he, to me, is one of the best at this.
Yep.
But I feel like he probably does mostly recorded stuff that he edits and puts up.
Yep.
And that's a tricky one, is trying to do live. I mean, I've had press passes, and I have a toy news podcast, and I go to events, and I still like struggle to find the time to turn the camera on and actually cover it. Like it's overwhelming sometimes to do something like that. But
It is.
yeah, that's a great goal. I would love to see that.
I mean, even, you know what, though, talking it through, even if it wasn't live, even if it wasn't like,
Yeah.
we're here right now and this is what you're missing, even if it was like Dan does, where it's taking a bunch of stuff together and editing it, there's, dude, a ton of videos coming out from Toylanta last weekend, right? There's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of people that are like really, like that community down there in Atlanta, there's a lot of ToyTubers down there. So a lot of them were filming all weekend, editing it together. Even if it was something like that, that would be super cool. I think the reality is I'm better in front of the camera than I am behind it. So
Mhm.
for me to like film it and then get back and edit it and do all that, I know that that's where I'm going to find the challenge. Because when I get back, I've got a million other things waiting for me that I've got to do. So I need to partner with someone that wants to shoot the video and let me just be the person on camera, because that's really where I'm most comfortable, clearly.
Let's do it. Let's do it at Shop the Curiosity. We'll test it out. I'll be your cameraman.
There we go.
We'll do it, because I'm gonna try to go to that event.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll try something. Let's
That's
do
a
it.
great one to try it at because it's a smaller event.
Tiny
and,
show.
Yeah, tiny show, smaller event, much easier to manage. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so before we wrap up, why don't you just share, your YouTube channel again, and maybe even your social media, just your handles, and so
Sure.
people can go follow.
Pretty simple. At YouTube, it's at Mythic Customs, all one word. Same thing on Instagram. That's my other main, where I post a lot of my, my customizing and stuff like that. That's on Instagram. That's also at Mythic Customs, all one word.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, Mythic Customs, thanks for coming on ToyTubers.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, may the force be with you.